In this episode of Cooking for Novices, steak. Wonderful, delicious, perfect steak. Now, you go to a steakhouse and they'll charge you way too much money for this. Do not do this. Do yourself a favor, cook it at home. It becomes much more affordable and much more delicious. Now, you might say, hey, I live in an apartment or I don't have a grill. Well, that's fine because I'm going to show you a method that works in my apartment in Tokyo where I have no grill. So, please, do yourself a favor, stop going to steakhouses and learn how to cook steak at home. So the slice of steak we have here today is just a chuck steak. It's nothing too fancy. As you can see, there's lots of chunks of fat. The marbling isn't consistent. But to get that nice, smooth, lean texture throughout, it's going to cost you some money. Money which I don't have as a poor college student. So, what to do? Well, the method we're using today is actually pretty universal for anything that's cut into a steak from the butchers. Make friends with your butchers. They'll never steer you wrong. So what we want to do today to prep this for the method that I'm going to be showing you a little bit later is we want to go ahead and trim some of this fat off. So I'm going to take my knife, and it's just the bigger, fattier areas. You don't need to get, all surgeon-y with it. Just kind of cut into it, right, and take it off. Because this isn't going to cook into good steak. It's just a chunk of fat. So, I've trimmed that off. You can trim this like right here. Go ahead. Me personally, I like to leave some of the fat on if I'm going to be sacrificing too much beef. Here, there wasn't too much of an issue with it. You can see here, there's a little bit of beef that I'm sacrificing, but we're taking out a lot of fat, so that's fine. Now, the next thing to do to prep this steak is you want to go ahead and salt it. Now, if you remember the popcorn episode, we were talking about kosher salt. Now, kosher salt is flaky and it will stick to meat better than any other salt out there. So, you want to go ahead, salt it, go ahead, be liberal with it. A lot of that salt will come out. The great thing about salt is that it takes flavors and makes them taste more like themselves. It turns it up to 11, as it were. So, I always use salt in my cooking. By all means, consult your doctor if you have problems with it, but you can't really go wrong with a lot of these applications because the salt tends to come off in the cooking. Now, if you're putting it into soups and stuff, obviously, or bread where you're not cooking it and it's going to come off, that's when you want to really worry about how much salt you're putting on. But in this, you're fine. So now that we've salted our steak, we want to go ahead and add pepper. Now, pepper is a personal choice, how much you want to use. I like it a lot. I think it really helps to open up the flavors. But some people find it too spicy. So this is purely up to how much pepper you like. So now that we've peppered up our steak, what we want to do is add oil. And you'll be wondering why we're doing this. Well, it's not a lot of oil, just a little bit. So what the oil does is it gets heat into the steak. And we'll put a little bit more here. Just enough to get a nice shine everywhere. So the oil is necessary not only as a heat transfer medium to really help get the steak in, but it actually helps with the browning. So this is all down to the Maillard reaction. Now, you don't need to know the scientific details of it other than the fact that basically high heat and a little bit of oil creates browning, just like when you're sauteing mushrooms. So now that we've prepared our steak, we're gonna go ahead and let the salt do its voodoo while we attend to the hardware. In this case, cast iron skillet. Now, if you do not have a cast iron skillet in your kitchen, you need a cast iron skillet in your kitchen. It is a very versatile piece of cookware. We've been using it for centuries. You need one. What's so great about it? Well, you never have to wash it because you have this nice seasoning, which makes it non-stick. Because it's just cast iron, you can throw it pretty much anywhere. Directly onto coals, in the oven for finishing steaks, or wherever you want that's high heat, it'll handle it. So please go ahead and buy one. They're dirt cheap. This one's like $20 brand new. Go right ahead. Heck, you don't even have to buy one brand new. You might have a grandma around, and if you have a grandma around, she might have one already. Go ahead and ask her. Okay, so let's get our cast iron skillet heated up. Go ahead and put it on high. You want to get this really hot, like rocket hot. One golden rule when working with cast iron is hand protection. This is a branding iron. There's no silicone, whatever, protecting your hands. It is a hot piece of metal that you will grab. Even this might be too little, so I like to keep an extra towel on hand, nice and thick, in case it gets really hot. So we got our hand protection, we have our skillet. Anything else? Well, I always like to use an instant read thermometer. It's the only surefire way to know what's going on inside the meat. So these are really easy. They just open up and they tell you instantly just how hot things are. So great way to tell doneness. Why? Because doneness is a function of temperature. I like mine rare, so anywhere between 120 degrees and 130 degrees will get you rare. As you can maybe see, being HD, there's a little bit of smoke coming up from the oil. That means we've hit max temperature we want. This thing is rocket hot. You can feel it just putting your hand here. So we have our hand protection, we have our thermometer, we have our steak. So let's go ahead and put it on. I like using a pair of tongs, keeps my hands safe. Just put it right on. So we've let it cook for 30 seconds. I'm gonna go ahead and flip it. You see some of that browning starting to come in there? This is what we're after. Now we're gonna go ahead and let it finish for another 30 seconds. We could put it in the oven to finish it off. If it was any thicker than this, I definitely would. But at this thinness, I'm gonna go ahead and take it off right after this. It may be close to done. If it needs a little bit more time, I'm gonna give it to it. So the other 30 seconds is up. I'm gonna go ahead and take it off and check its temperature. Go in from the side to make sure we're in the middle of the steak and not on the top. Stick it right in. And you can see we're at 124.5. That's a great temperature. That's right in the middle of the rare zone. That's gonna give you a nice, delicious steak. Now, do not touch this. Just let it sit. This is the best thing you can do for your steak right now. So, why are we resting the steak, you might ask? Well, after you're done torturing the meat with high heat, the cells have pushed out all of its moisture, like steam out of a kettle. And you gotta give it time for the cells to relax and let the moisture seep back in. Otherwise, all your nice delicious juiciness will just come out wherever you cut it. So, let it rest for at least 15 minutes. So, we've let our steak rest for 15 minutes. Now for the real test. See how she tastes. See that? That is a delicious piece of rare meat just waiting to be put in my mouth. Mmm.